a little bit about what we do. Shipbuilding. We're really excited about that because of this reason. We're the only port in Texas that's actually doing large-scale shipbuilding. I'm not talking about building barges or building shrimp boats or building tugboats. I'm talking about building large-scale ocean-going vessels. And in fact, it hasn't been going on in Texas since Houston did it during World War II to support the war effort. So we have a company at the Port of Brownsville called Keppel Amtels. They've been in our community for 30 years. And they've been, for us, I refer to them as one of our legacy companies. They've helped put a lot of kids through college. They've had a lot of people employed here throughout the day. But Keppel is owned by Keppel Singapore. In fact, they just merged with another company and changed their name. And so this is the only U.S. facility that they have in their conglomerate. And here, Keppel was focused on building rigs, petroleum or exploration offshore oil rigs. And so they were basically Keppel offshore. And so, the industry has seen last 15 years its ups and downs. In 2015, it tanked, and guess what? It really hasn't come back. We're starting to see movement of rigs out into the Gulf now. But 75% of the rig fleet that was out there in 2015 is no longer out in the Gulf. So they said, we need to do something different, man, because we saw them go from 2,500 employees to 2,000 to 1,500 to 1,000. And there in the 2015 to 2016, there was all kinds of rumors that were shutting down and leaving. They kept telling us, no, we're not. We're here for the long run. They got down to about 200 employees, and we were all panicking. And then they made an announcement in 2017. They announced that they were going to get into the marine side of the industry, into shipbuilding, but large-scale shipbuilding. And they announced a contract with Pasha, Hawaii, to build two 774-foot ocean-going container vessels. Why Pasha, Hawaii? Because what they decided to do was to focus on the Jones Act trade. Jones Act meaning the U.S. market only. If you're going to go from the Port of Brownsville to the Port of Corpus and to the Port of Houston, you have to be Jones Act. It's those cabotage laws. All ports have them throughout. You can't come here from Mexico or from wherever. Let's say we've got a ship coming from Sepetiba, Brazil with slab, stops at the Port of Brownsville. Guess what? It can't go to another U.S. port. It has to leave. So what Jones Act does is allows you to operate in the Jones Act market. And that became a brilliant move because it's a finite market. You already know how many ships there are in that market, and you know it's an aging fleet. So they landed a contract with Pasha, Hawaii, which is a family-owned business out of Honolulu that operates from Honolulu to Long Beach to Oakland and back. Well, this was a big deal for us because these two vessels meant 700 jobs. And one thing about the maritime industry, it's not a minimum wage employer. So that was the beginning. We were very excited. But most importantly, these vessels were also going to be dual fuel capable, meaning that they could operate in multiple fuels. And right now, it's LNG. So they built them to be able to use liquid natural gas. And so, in fact, the first vessel, the George, made its maiden voyage from Honolulu to Long Beach this past August, and it made it using LNG propulsion. And so the sister ship, the Janet Marie, but by the way, George was the founder of the company, so I guess he can build a ship and name after Sid, but the second one better damn well be named after his wife. So the Janet Marie is George's wife. So she's supposed to join George in Honolulu in that trade lane sometime before the end of this quarter. But they didn't stop there. In September of 2020, they made another announcement. We're building the largest hopper dredge, trail along hopper dredge, in the Jones Act fleet for a company called Manson Construction. That's how do we preserve 700 jobs and create more? Get one of those contracts. And then in December of 2021, they announced that they were built the first of its kind in the Jones Act fleet a vessel that would be used to transport and erect the offshore wind projects that are going to be going off Rhode Island and heading south on the east shore. That's a huge deal. 600 million employees. And what does that mean? That means the 700 grew to 1,000 to 1,500. Right now they're about 2,100 and growing. And there'll be many more of those announcements coming. So we're very excited not only to be the only port in Texas that's building this kind of vessels, but the fact that we're growing, we've introduced the industry back to the state, and we're excited that it is going to be around for a while. Ship recycling. That's something that we've been in. It used to be called shipbreaking and then ship dismantling. Now we call it ship recycling. And what that means, and we've been in this business for over 50 years. So we know how to do it. We know how to do it well. Well, one of the biggest things for us is that we've done so much work for the government, whether it's for the MARAD, Maritime Administration, who has a collection of vessels that they operate for this country, as well as the Navy. Well, when vessels get to the point where they're obsolete, they have to do something with them. In many cases, they just simply store them. We have what they call 3 ghost fleets in the United States. One's in Beaumont, one's on the East Coast in the Hampton Roads area, and one's off of California, Suisun Bay. Well, they've got to do something with those. So they put them out for commercial recycling. They'd love to send them to China or to Turkey or to India, where you've seen those documentaries about how they beach them on the beach, they cut them, and then they have what I call this army ant effect, a bunch of little kids just simply in a line marching down with pieces of steel. Well, guess what? We don't do it that way here. Here there's an act called the Basel Act, that you can't export your environmental problems to some other place to do it cheaper. So we do it here in this country. And so the aircraft carrier program. The Navy had 7 conventional aircraft carriers that it had also, mothballed. Well, what do we do with them? A lot of people make a museum out of them. The problem with that is nobody can afford to take them to do that. Just to move them, just to maintain them, just to do everything else you need. Nobody can do that. Well, then they thought, well, why don't we kind of use them for, quote, the SINK-X program. Basically, that meant is we use them for target practice and sink themselves. Well, they got a lot of pushback on that. So eventually they made the decision, we're just going to put them out for commercial recycling. Well, guess what? Of those 7 vessels, 6 of them have come here and are no longer, they're done. And these projects are all classified until the last piece of metal is done. The 6th one, which I hope we can do it, you'll be able to see it today, which is the Kitty Hawk, that's actually in our port, currently being recycled. And it still has some semblance of looking like an aircraft carrier. And the last one, the 7th one, is the JFK, the John F. Kennedy. And that one will probably be coming to us by the end of this quarter, is from what I understand. Now that one will come with a lot of fanfare, because these are very historic vessels and they're popular, and a lot of people follow them. In fact, this is a picture of the Kitty Hawk coming in, but I think we had the Ranger. That one was that a lot of people were excited about the Ranger. They called it the Hollywood boat, because that's the one that was supposedly used as the backdrop for filming the first Top Gun movie. So people recognized it. Plus, you have servicemen and women that, they spent a lot of time on these vessels, and so they're very endearing to a large community, and a lot of it is our service community. So this is an important service that we believe that we provide to this country by not only doing it right, environmentally correct. Occupational safety is critical. It's important to the security of our country. A lot of these vessels may be 40 years old or 50 and 60 years old. But to a lot of our adversaries, there may be some technological things they can learn about how these vessels here that they can use against us. So that's why these projects are classified until the last piece is done. And now we're talking about the nuclear class. But before anybody here in this community who lives here, and I say nuclear, don't freak out, don't go nuclear. What we're talking about is the Enterprise is going to be the first of the nuclear carriers that is going to be awarded for commercial recycling. And the Port of Brownsville stands a very good chance of being that port. Now, this is a historic, unique vessel. This is bigger than anything we've ever seen. And by the way, it will not come in glowing in the middle of the night. It will be defueled and all that other good stuff. So we just simply get it here to dispose of it properly. We're also the only U.S. site that has been accredited by the European Union to recycle their vessels. And we've had some European Union vessels in here. And so this is a big deal for us. And, I talked about the Pasha Hawaii, and I talked about, how we're building the ship here, and then it's already going. Well, guess what? The vessel that the George replaced is coming here, and it will be here in a month or two to be recycled. Because if any of you are Lion King fans, the circle of life. It started here and it'll end here. So that's exciting to us. But this is an amazing industry, and we're going to be in it. In fact, the aircraft carrier program on the nuclear side, the Navy just announced the Nimitz. They're going to put it out. Now, the Nimitz, there's 10 of those in that fleet. So this has a long horizon. I mean, this is a 50-year, again, sustaining the industry over time. So we're excited about that. Wind energy, I talked about we're doing. We do a lot of wind components. In fact, we have a company in Matamoros, TPI Nordex, that is a very significant player for us here in this region. They're actually building the longest wind blades that we see right now at 81 meters. When we started this business, these blades were about 125 foot long. The nacelles were maybe 1.5 to 1.9 megawatts. The towers were in 3 sections. Now we're moving 270-foot blades. We're moving 5 tower sections. The nacelles are always 2 megawatts. And so they're getting bigger and bigger. But more importantly, we have developed the logistics capability to be one of the top ports in the nation for being able to move this stuff. We all see them on the road. If you're in this area and they're coming down, and you get behind them, you start cursing them because they're going real slow. They stop the intersections and all that stuff. But you know what? We move them by water. We've got a vessel we're loading right now with blades that are going out. I don't know if it's Peru or Chile, but 50% of the blades that we now export through this port, and I'm just saying it could be domestic export mostly or foreign, are actually moving by rail. We now have the capability of shipping a rail blade train all the way up to Alberta, Canada, or to New Mexico, or to Phoenix, or to Nebraska, or to Wyoming. And so this has been a great industry for us and expanding. And we'll see that out there. You see the blades, you see the offshore, they look like this big, and maybe you see them closer. But when you see them up close and personal, you can see how big these components are. Let me just real quickly, I talked about the deepening channel. This is a big deal for us. This map represents the boundaries of our 40,000 acres. That channel, the dark green, where it ends is our private partner under the P3 initiative. They're undertaking that entire expansion, and then from the lighter green to where it ends, that will be us working with the Corps and more the traditional model. This is a big deal, and this has brought a lot of business interest, and it really sends a strong message to our existing customers that we want to do whatever we can to support their logistics needs so they can grow here too. Whether it's Eternium, whether it's our refined product customers. Shell is an owner with a Mexican company, 50% owner here in Brownsville for a facility called Interlude. And if you're familiar with Quaker State, we all kind of are. They're in the lubricant business. Well, guess what? Interlude is the primary lubricant supplier to Mexico. Chances are all of that stuff is coming through our port. This project, this is the one that gets all the fanfare. I can't go to H-E-B. If you want to know about Brownsville, you're visiting and you like shopping at grocery stores, just go to H-E-B. Everybody will stop and ask you where you're from, what you do, or if they know what you do, then they'll ask you what's up with this or that. Well, this is the number one asked question. When is the LNG going to announce? When is it coming? And why? Well, one, this is phase one. Right now, this is the largest private sector investment in the state of Texas at $11.4 billion. We've never been in that discussion as a region. That's why it's such a big deal. Bechtel, which is an international company, is going to be building this. Bechtel's been in business for 125 years. It's a family-owned, and it's built LNG and large-scale projects all over the world. They're the EPC on this project. They're telling us that at peak, which will be about 2-3 years away, there'll be anywhere between 5,000 to 6,000 employees on site. That's why it's a big deal for us. 300 plus permanent jobs. Now, again, that's not a big number, but what is a big number is what they pay. And here in the Valley, our economy is a service economy. Tourism, education, government, health, and retail. Well, guess what? 80% of the people in that business who have a family of 4 don't even earn the wage to keep you below the poverty line for that measurement. That's why this is a big deal. These jobs, $85,000 a year, $100,000 a year jobs. That's why it's such a big deal. And of course, we put this on. I did notice that Commissioner Cowan left, but we do this to, the local governments will get tax money out of this as well. But in this project, I expect an announcement. What we've been waiting for will definitely be made this quarter, but I don't think it's going to come at the end of June. I really think it's going to come towards the end of May. And this is where we all got to get ready. But we've been waiting for this a long time. And this is the first of 2. We have a smaller project called Texas LNG, which is a neighbor of theirs. So if this project happens, they're going to be they're permitted to produce 27 million tons of LNG. Texas LNG is permitted to do 4 million. They're small. But if the industry stays there, we will be the largest producer of LNG of any port in the United States at 33 million tons per year. Forza Steel. Somebody asked me today, what's that big building going on across from Keppel? Well, this is a Mexican business, Forza. They're coming into the U.S. market. They're a steel fabricator, tubing, piping, energy, construction, whatever. But they're spending $60 million. It'll create 150 jobs. And we're happy to have them in our community. This is a project I've already talked about. This is the Pesqueria project, specifically on that, but more importantly, supporting their growth. In fact, we're talking to them about $180 to $200 million investment related to a marine terminal that will support the expansion of Pesqueria in Monterrey. And West Plains, our grain elevator, we've got a $22 million project to expand the capability to be able to load vessels for foreign export. We have done that in the past, and we want to do it again. And most recently, Sunoco. If you're familiar with Sunoco, they used to own the 7-Elevens, and they sold them. Well, guess what? They're non-compete. Now they're back in the market, and they decided, well, we don't need to go through a middle party to provide us our fuel. We'll do it ourselves. So they built their own terminal to be their own supplier here in the retail area. And that's really it. So thank you all very much. I don't know who's going to the port, but I hope this will kind of prepare you, at least visually, to what you will be seeing that's on the ground. And it may relate when I talk about the slab, or I talk about the blades, or the rail movements. You'll kind of see that in action. Let's hope we can get on a boat. The weather is bad, but we'll do something. And seeing it from the water is entirely different than seeing it from land. So anyway, thank you.